helped thousands of students with language paper 2 because year on year, it's one that everyone gets stuck with, especially the persuasive writing. So make sure you stay towards the end to get the persuasive writing tips because it will be so helpful because it's worth 50% of the whole paper. So let's go through a summary of each question. You should be able to know off the top of your head what each question is. So when you know what question it is, then you'll be able to know the techniques and the structures that go with it. So question 5 is persuasive writing and it's 40 marks. Question 4 is compare both sources and their attitudes towards whatever the extract's on, and that'll be 16 marks. Question 3 is how does the writer use language to describe, insert, whatever they're talking about, that is 12 marks. Question 2, summary of the similarities or differences between the two sources, that's 8 marks. And then question 1 is shade 4 true statements and it is 4 marks. So you should be able to know off the top of your head, if I was to say to you, what is question 2? You'd be able to know it's a summary of the similarities and differences and know it's 8 marks. If you know what each question is, trust me, it'll make your life so much easier. So, question 1, what it is. It is shade 4 true statements and the marks, it is 4 marks. This is probably the easiest question on both of the language papers because you don't even have to do any writing. All you're doing is shading it in. And then just make sure, as a little top tip, to have the extract next to you and next to the question so you can see the 4 true statements really easily. So literally have the extract, have the questions side by side, and literally just skim the bit of the extract that they want you to read through and then compare it with the 4 true statements and then shade them in. Literally as simple as that. This should be anyway the last question you do because we always recommend you do it in reverse order, starting with question 5, just because that is worth the most amount of marks. And if there's any question you're going to rush, it should be this one because you'll be able to do it pretty quickly. Question 2, what it is. It is provide a summary of the similarities or differences between the two sources. Now, really important here, it's a summary. You don't need to give a full synopsis of the whole thing. You're kind of summarizing the similarities or differences, depends what they ask you in the question, and you're summarizing it, right? So it's 8 marks as well. So just so you know, you don't need to write loads and loads for this question. Again, this should be the second to last question that you end up doing because of the order you'll do the paper in. So my first top tip here is to use the structure Peak P. Now, this is taken directly from the Lightup Hub, which we have all the structures done for you with sentence starters and everything. So this is what you're going to do. The P stands for point about A. You're going to give me your point about source A. What's your point? Be very specific and focused on whatever the question's asking. The E is for evidence, so just embed a quote that supports your point. The A is for analysis, so tell me what the quote shows and why, just very briefly, it doesn't have to be massively in-depth for this question. And then C is compare with B, so you're going to do a comparison, explain the comparison, how it's different or similar, depending on what the question is. P is point about B, so you're kind of repeating this again. Give me your point, be very clear though, make sure it links to whatever the question's asking. E is evidence, again, embed your evidence. And when I say embed, I mean don't say this is shown by the quote, embed it in so it flows, kind of make it seem like it's part of the sentence that you're writing. And then the A is for analysis. Again, saying what the quote suggests, shows, and tell me why. So you want to do about 2 to 3 of those comparative paragraphs using Peak P, depending on timing and how quickly you can write, but that is a full structure for you. So if you do want structures, sentence starters, model examples, grade 9 essays, top tips straight from the examiner, that is all on the Lightup Hub. So everything we basically show you on this channel comes directly from the Lightup Hub. We just kind of do it in a shorter format. Everything's in way more detail, videos, condensed notes, quizzes, note-taking features, personalized revision plans, everything in one place. So for example, if you look at language paper 2, this is just a snippet of the course, just for language paper 2. We have all of literature included as well, and essay skills and revision, and that's everything that you get. So let's go on to question 3. What it is. It is how does the writer use language to describe insert? Now, if you know your papers really well, you will know that this is basically the same as language paper 1, question 2, which again is a language question, asks you to analyse language. This one is just worth 12 marks, whereas the one before was worth 8 marks. So we can just basically use a very similar thing, but we just want to add more analysis onto it. So you should already practice this skill. So this question, you actually kind of don't need to learn the skill set for it because you would have already done it before. So my first top tip is to give 3 bits of evidence per paragraph. So you want to have 2 paragraphs with about 6 bits of evidence in each. And one of your bits of evidence can count as zooming in on one word. For example, like cold. So when I say 6 bits of evidence, I don't want 6 long quotes. Firstly, for language, I don't want any long quotes really. Keep them really short. And then one of your bits of evidence can count to be like a one word. So literally picking out one word that supports your point or whatever you're speaking about, and that can count as one of your bits of evidence. So in both of your paragraphs, just get a one word bit of evidence and that counts. And because it's 12 marks, if you can have 6 bits of evidence altogether, that should hopefully get you the marks. If you've got a good structure in place, use the sentence starters from the Lightup Hub, then you're sorted. My second top tip is to find 4 keywords that answer the question and then group the ones that are most similar to answer the question. So what I mean by this, to be really clear, if, for example, the question is, how is Sarah presented? Or how is language used to present Sarah? Whatever the question is. What you're going to do is you're going to read through the extract and you're going to think of the first or the best 4 words that you would use to answer the question. So pretending I read the extract, my 4 words for this question is cheerful, young, excited, and curious. Then my 4 words, if I was going to kind of summarize how Sarah is presented through the writer's use of language, they would be my 4 words. So what I would do is I would group together the words that are most similar. So kind of the ones that could work together, that I could kind of make a point about and get my evidence to support that. So for example, in paragraph 1, I might do cheerful and excited. They're quite similar. I'm describing her temperament, her characteristics and her traits. So I'm going to group that together in one paragraph. And then for paragraph 2, I might put young and curious because that's kind of more about a different part of her nature. They're more similar in terms of characteristics. So there, you've got 2 really clear focuses for each paragraph, and then you can pick evidence that supports in paragraph 1 that she's cheerful and excited, and in paragraph 2 that she's young and curious. And it gives you a real focus. And you'll know as well, I speak a lot on this channel about making sure for literature in particular, constantly linking it back to the word from the question, having a focus, referring back to it. And you can do the same for language. You just obviously have to make it up on the spot. You can't pre-learn it, but still use those techniques. Think about something you're going to carry on linking it back to, and it just makes your answer's really clear as well, and it will just get you a high level because it shows the examiner that you're able to think of a point and give evidence to support that. So that's really, really good top tip for that. Question 4, what it is. Compare both sources and their attitudes to insert. Sometimes it says attitudes or it says viewpoints, but either or, they're kind of opinion, really. The marks for this are 16 marks. So this is the second heaviest weighted question in the whole paper, and this is the question that you will do second. So you're going to start with persuasive writing, and then you're going to do this one second. So the first top tip I want you to do is use both language and structure techniques and comment how this is used by the writer to convey their opinion. Now, just to be really clear as well, a lot of students get thrown off by question 4 because it talks about like viewpoints or perspectives. A viewpoint is just an opinion. So think about their likes and their dislikes. That is their viewpoint. That is their opinion. If you was going to read through the whole thing, think about, okay, what is their opinion? Are they for something? Are they against it? And that helps you know their viewpoint. So don't get thrown off by viewpoint. It just means their opinion. So language and structure techniques. So what I mean by this is you want to use things like simile, metaphor, diction, verb. Structure techniques, you want to use shift in focus, paragraph, sentence lengths, all of those different techniques, and then comment on how that shows the writer's opinion. So if you are picking out language or structure, and for this question as well, guys, you want to use both language and structure techniques, you want to say how that shows their opinion. If they're using a metaphor, what does that show about their opinion or viewpoint? Everything for this question should be linked back to how that displays their viewpoint on the given topic. If they're talking about buses, what does that show? What does the simile or that metaphor show about their opinion on buses? Do they like it? Do they dislike it? Are they excited about it? Are they being quite imaginative with it? Give me like what it shows about their opinion, what you can understand about their opinion from them using it. And the second thing for question 4, my second top tip, is to comment on writers' methods and how this helps them to convey their opinion. So before we spoke about language and structure techniques, which is an absolute must for this question, but also you can comment on the writer's methods. Now, writer's methods, slightly different. Technically, like language and structure could be a writer's method, but there are other methods that they use, particularly in non-fictions, like it's real life. Like this is the whole of paper 2, is like based on real life things. Writer's methods that they use to display their opinion. For example, tone of voice. So in whatever the extract that they're given, are they excited? Are they informative? And you can kind of tell, like, by the way that they're talking, are they giving more facts? Are they giving more of their emotions, their opinions? Are they sad? Like, what is their tone of voice? Really good to comment on, because that would be really indicative of what their opinion is on something. If, for example, it's an extract on a mountain and they're about to fall to their sudden death, what is their tone of voice? They might be petrified, they might be fearful. And again, that helps us understand their opinion on the climb of the mountain, helps us understand their viewpoint, their fears, their kind of thinking about death. That's what it allows us to understand about them, their tone of voice. So it's a really good one to comment on. And then also the form of the writing. Now, this is one that a lot of students will never comment on, but it's actually really insightful to their opinion. And it's insightful more in the way that they've conveyed their opinion. Have they used a letter? Is it an article? Like, what form have they used? And that will also help dictate their opinion. If it's a letter, it could be more personal, because of course a letter is quite a personal thing, an intimate thing from one person to another. So perhaps that shows their opinion, and maybe this is a real cherished moment for them, or a real fearful moment they want to share with a loved one. Thinking about, is it an article? Perhaps that's more informative, more factual. They want to share their opinion with the masses. They want to make more people understand their opinion. So then you can link that everything back to, what is their tone of voice? What is the form of writing? And how does that showcase their viewpoint, opinion, or their attitude? And then finally, question 5. Question 5, the most important question on this whole paper. And of course, this is 25% of the whole English language, Mark. I know. So we better get this right. Question 5 for this paper, we cannot pre-write out. So just like we do for question 5 on language paper 1, I always recommend you pre-write out your creative writing, adapt it, and we show you how to do that, of course, on the Lightup Hub as well. But for this one, we can't pre-write it out. So there's certain things that you should kind of keep in mind and a bit of a tick list. So what it is, it's persuasive writing, you know, letter, speech, article, on whatever the topic is. They'll give you a statement and you've got to argue for or against it. Marks, it is 40 marks, so 24 marks for how good your writing is, how persuasive it is, then 16 marks for SPAG, so spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So the first top tip is you want to have a strong line of argument. Now, I want you to be either very strongly for or very strongly against. Do not be balanced. Do not be balanced in any which way. I don't want a balanced argument. Don't sit on the fence, give me, oh, we think this, but I also think that. No. What the examiner wants is you to be persuasive. So imagine you were trying to persuade your friend to go out. You're not going to say, oh, you know what, we should really go out. It's really sunny today, but if you stay in, you can watch TikToks in bed and maybe eat loads of chocolate. You're not going to give them a balanced argument as to why they should stay indoors. You're going to be giving them just a persuasive argument on one side. Yes, you can include counter arguments in it, giving them other reasons, but you're going to have a very clear line of argument. That is what you want to do in your persuasive writing, because you cannot be persuasive without a clear line of argument. So, for example, if the statement was, meat should be banned from school cafeterias, what you can do is you can still have counter arguments. Now, counter arguments are, of course, countering your main point. They're kind of going against it. But when we include counter arguments, because we don't want a balanced argument, we want to then counter our counter arguments. So counter arguments are a good way for you to acknowledge the other opinion or the other side of things, the other perspective, but then to link it back to why you're right and persuade whoever you're persuading to believe your opinion. So for example, my line of argument would be that I disagree. I disagree that meat should be banned. That's going to be my line of argument. From the very first sentence in my persuasive writing, it should be clear that I disagree. Then I could have a counter argument. Remember, I disagree. I think that it shouldn't be banned. My counter argument could agree, as it may be offensive to vegans or vegetarians. That could be my counter argument, right? My whole essay's been disagreeing. I don't think it should be banned. Then I'm going to give a counter argument saying, oh, however, it could be more considerate to vegans or vegetarians, or it could be deemed as offensive, so perhaps it should be banned. But then I'm going to counter my counter argument. So I'm going to give a counter argument to the counter argument. So this is my counter to the counter argument. We must base it off the majority, not the minority. So I'm countering about the vegans and the vegetarians. I'm linking it back to my point of view, which of course I'm disagreeing with the statement. So I'm going to counter it to show why my opinion is superior and it is better. So that is a good way to do it. Don't be balanced, but have a counter argument and then just counter the counter argument. And then the second top tip that I've got is to link it to the wider context. So, for example, think about how you can link it to bigger ideas outside of just your opinion. Now, the top students will not just think about their opinion, but think about how it links to the wider context. Things like society, community, the religion, any other bigger ideas, like that thing like society, anything that's bigger than you as an individual, and if you can link it to that. We've got a whole bit on the Lightup Hub, which is so good for this, giving you sentence starters, model examples, things that you can just use for each and every one, and it just makes it super easy to tick it off in the exam. But the high-level students always don't just think about their opinion, but think about it on a wider context. So if we're linking it back to like meat should be banned in school cafeterias, then if I was going to link it back to maybe society, I could be saying, well, we don't just have just vegan or vegetarian restaurants in, London or in the country or wherever. So why would we just have a vegan or vegetarian or meat-free cafeteria? It's not representative of the whole of society. That's how I could link it to society, for an example. So that's a really good way as well to give you more ideas, because a lot of students tend to run out of ideas or not really know how to expand on their ideas. So thinking about the wider context gives you more to say. And my third and final top tip for question 5 is to have an acronym with persuasive techniques. So you want to pre-learn an acronym. Again, we've got one on the Lightup Hub if you did want it. You want to pre-learn it with all the persuasive techniques so you can go into the exam with all of it and then just tick it off as you go along. So an acronym should have all the techniques so you can just tick it off. And they can have persuasive techniques. Like I said, Lightup Hub already has these acronyms. It has actually 2 acronyms to help you do it. But it could have persuasive techniques like simile, metaphor, rule of 3. And by it having all in one acronym, and there'll be so many different acronyms that you can use, but you want to have one that you can trust that's got all of them in it, or the key ones that are going to help you get the marks. And then you can just tick it off. So not only are you going to have a strong line of argument, you're going to link it to wider context, but you're also going to have an acronym with persuasive techniques to make sure you're actually being persuasive. So if this video was helpful, guys, make sure that you subscribe and also leave a little comment if you like these style of PowerPoint videos so we know to do more of them, and comment any future suggestions of things you'd like us to cover, because we're always making new videos and putting out new things for you.